Video bonanza today, as well as possibly awkward pause before I did that because the YouTube thing is being weird and not actually possibly recording the first second, so I have to check and make sure, and then draw attention to it with arm flailings and ramblings for 12 minutes about it. Anyway, this is the third review I'm recording like back to back, straight up to YouTube, making up for that lost time in making videos. But in this time, I'm going to finally linchpin finish doing that video I tried to do a little bit ago about talking about some simple rules like game systems I came up with that I wanted to share out there. Just get it out of my system and out there into the public with weird slurred talkings. Anyway, there is two, one of which requires at least one storyteller and 3 other players. It doesn't work as well with only 2. But working, and it also can't usually have more than 6 players including the storyteller. It gets a little weird there and might not work as smoothly because it's designed for 6 most and 4 players least. I mean, you can work with just 3 including the storyteller, but it wouldn't be as good. Designed for 4 players including storyteller, and it doesn't really have much of a name, but just call it Intrigue. It's fairly simple. If you're familiar with the Dread RPG, in which you answer, your character creation is answering a questionnaire describing why are you here, what, who are you, what do you do for a living, and it's basically elements of your character, profession and life, rather than rules and numbers and stuff. It's just basically the story of your character questionnaire, rather than classes and stats and stuff, because it's a storytelling system. Rules light. And with the Dread RPG and this system, usually the questions will be general, like the examples I gave before, but sometimes the DM will throw in something that is very specific, and the rule for that is all the questions on the questionnaire are true. Meaning, if the DM throws in 1 or 2 questions, why did you leave him behind that day? You left someone behind sometime in your past for some reason. You have to define why, who you left behind, and when it was, and basically answer the question, explain it, integrate that into your character. And that's the rules. Questionnaire. That's how you create your character in both the Dread RPG and this game. Now, another aspect is the task resolution, the dice system, because this uses dice, not Jenga like in the Dread RPG, is a D6. Now, 6 and through 1, you gotta, 1 through 6, you gotta pick a number. Nobody can have the same number. You could arbitrate random assignment, but the only number that has any significance other than being assigned to someone in the system is 6, because 6 is always the bad guy. It's always the traitor. Other than that, the other 5 numbers don't mean anything outside of they're assigned to someone, and when they come up, we'll talk about that later. 6 has to be the traitor in the group, if there is one. If the group isn't playing with a traitor in its midst, nobody can be 6, or 6 doesn't have that significance. Anyway, what about that? What's this about traitors? And why is it Intrigue? Well, the system is designed to be a short-term story in which you are in a crisis situation of some kind, or you're in a mystery environment, like horror, mystery, or crisis scenario, like you're CIA agents and the secret base has been set to self-destruct. Who did it? Gotta find out who did it, stop their plot, and get out, deactivate the self-destruct. You know, escape death while finding the bad guy. That's the kind of scenario it runs in, the type of game it's meant to do. There's a murderer at the prom. You've got to survive and possibly stop the murderer. That kind of scenario. And the 6 is always the guy that set the self-destruct mechanism and the guy that's killing people. Could be in the group, could not be. And there's side rules. Basically, other than that, why assign numbers? Well, that's another defining element of the system, the storytelling game. Every character in the game, bad guy or not, has a secret, a dark secret. How dark? It depends on the, what you want to do. Everyone has a dark secret. And when you make a roll, and this only happens when you are rolling, and your number comes up, when you roll it, the situation at hand has some connotations towards your secret. It has a chance of revealing your secret. But let's say your number's 5, and you're trying to tame a dog that's in the wilderness and howling and I'm gonna attack the party if you don't do something. You're trying to tame the dog, and you roll 5. Your numbers come up, is what that is called. That dog, or dogs in general, have something to do with your background. It may not immediately expose your secret easily. It might point you at risk at immediate exposure, or it could just remind you of something. Like you had a dog in your past, and it was there when you killed your wife in self-defense when she went insane. That dog isn't going to reveal that your wife went insane and you had to kill her in self-defense, but that reminds an element of your background that's been introduced. Now, if you're hacking through files and your file, some file in there comes up that reveals your secret, and it's right there, you gotta get that information out of there without the group noticing. And if they see it, oh, okay, yeah, that's a possibility. Now, you don't want anybody to know when your number comes up, because that can play against you. You don't want people to be able to guess your number, because if they find out your number, it gives the bad guy mechanical advantages. He can find out your secret. People can cash in numbers. They can guess your number to get clues towards your secret. That's a side rule, but generally you want to keep it a secret. You can have a side rule where if somebody can invoke guessing your number in a scene to force something that will expose your secret. It's a side rule. But put it simply, when you are going to a situation in which you need to do something, you roll a d6. 4 or higher succeeds. If you roll your number, and it only happens when you roll your number, something about the situation is either reminds you of your background, is added to your background as an element, or risks exposing your secret, possibly both. And that is it. That's simple. It's that simple and easy to use. Theoretically, if you want to use more players, you could use a higher type of dice, like a D8, but then it gets kind of weird mechanically speaking. And also, difficulty of tasks can be adjusted to make it where you have to roll a 5 or 6 to succeed, or make it particularly easy where a 3 or up will succeed. But still, your number coming up will always apply. I'll go into more about the rules for calling someone's number in a scene later. That's an optional rule. It's not something I really bothered to refine a lot, and it's something that just adds a lot more fiddliness to it that doesn't need to be there. I kind of took it out. But yeah, really simple system that can flex your storytelling and improvisation muscles. Big role-playing exercise. Now the other one we'll be talking about in are abbreviated because this is getting to be a long video, but it's a little bit more complex, and it's more suited to action type games where you're like kung fuing and stuff like that. But to put it simply, you have 6 attributes. Not strength. Too much D&D. Physical, mental, and magical or technological, depending on the setting. And those define your core base attributes, your ability to do those types of tasks, and how many times you can do those tasks if you don't have skills associated with them. And there's also skills, limit, and special, which work a little differently. Skills define how many skills you have and how many times you can avoid draining your ability scores to do a particular task related to the skill. More on that later. Now, limit defines your hit points, both mental and physical hit points, as well as your ability to heal. How many times you can restore drained points in various areas. You spend them to rest and for healing magic and stuff like that. Now, special works a little differently, as that's a number of times you can either spend a point of special to reroll your roll, or you can spend it to add an extra dice to the roll. Now, for task resolution, it's just a d6. 1 d6, and then you add your corresponding strength, mental, or magical value to it, depending on what you're doing. What are these ratios set by? How do you define your ability scores are, and how many skills you got, and yada yada. You have numbers 1 through 6, 1 of each. So 1 1, 1 6, 1 5, 1 of each number between 1 and 6. And you have 6 scores. Assign 1 to each. So you'll be really bad at one thing and really good at another thing. You want to make a strength check, and you have a strength. You want to make a physical check, and you have a physical of 6. Let's say you're sneaking, and you don't have the sneaking skill. Roll that d6, and you add 6 to it. So, boom, you most likely successfully snuck. But when you use an aspect of your character, one of those 6 values, you lower it by 1 temporarily. So I would advise having like an index card or something with your maximum values there, and then have like a d6 on each that is always set down to the value it's been rolled down to. Or if you can't remember what you picked it off of, have like a fraction looking thing there, and have 1 dice. That's possible too. But yeah. Skills enable you to circumvent the drain on your ability scores, those 3 ability scores. So you had stealth as a skill, and you rolled that physical check to sneak. You got that +6, and then you stab somebody, and you have the swordplay skill, you'd still get 6. And if you did something after that, you'd still have 6. But your skill value goes down. You don't lose skills, you just lose a count of number of times you can invoke your skills. So yeah, you'll want to have a decent skill score, and stuff like that. Now, your limit, you can spend those to take a break, or during out of combat, or somebody can cast a healing spell on you to enable you to do it in combat, or possibly spend magic to just give you what they spent to you, kind of thing. They spend from their limit to heal you instead. And special, like I said, can either re-roll that d6 roll, or add it where you can roll 2d6. But you're encouraged to add a special flourish to it, because you're invoking a special move, So yeah, overall, it's fairly simple. Now, what about what's difficulty set to? You might be asking. Well, that's also an interesting mechanic, as the difficulties of things you encounter are set on a scale of 1 to 6. So you can technically use d6s as miniatures, and then roll them down as they're being tackled. So a d6, a 6 enemy represented by d6 would be a reasonably tough enemy. Because, opposed rolls and everything. He's fighting with a 6, and you're literally attacking his modifier and lowering it and making it where he can't roll as successfully. And the more wounds he takes because you're lowering his score, it makes it harder for him to fight back as you beat him more relentlessly. Now somebody with like a physical of 6 is going to be able to punch that guy with a 6 reasonably consistently, but you're rolling off. So you're going to be like scrapping, sometimes taking wounds, sometimes really hitting him with a walloper. Combat is fast, even when you're like fighting 6 numbers, where you can possibly amp it up where there's bigger dice enemies, or even progress it further where you can like at some point in the game progress dice if you wanted to like add more depth to it, where you do something to make it where you roll a larger dice. But those are more mechanics I might devise myself later. But yeah, that's just some simple rules, systems I came up with. That one, the more complex one with the 6 scores and the winding down of them, I like coming up with that in like 10 minutes, honestly speaking. But I think they're good, and I just wanted to get them out of there because I keep trying to get my game group to test them out, but there's no free slots. So if you want to try those out, feel free to ask questions if you don't understand something or you want like a written rules to try. Go ahead and ask in the comments section. I'll be happy to oblige as soon as I have the free time. Anyway, this is going to be Cheese of Ages, signing out.